On his first busy day as Premier, Dean Brown has called for an immediate report into the destruction of a rare limestone cave at Sellicks Hill. It's been claimed the cave could have been a major tourist attraction if it hadn't been destroyed during mining.
Southern Quarries has defended last week's blasting of the cave at Sellicks Hill. Company manager Ron Delaney claims the decision was made on the grounds of safety. He says the main cavern was in the direct path of where they're about to mine, and the safety of workers could no longer be guaranteed. But members of the South Australian Cave Exploration Group are outraged by the destruction and have called on the government to act immediately. Shortly after being sworn in this afternoon, Premier Dean Brown called for the appropriate departments to come up with some answers.
We've asked for a report through the Department of Environment and Natural Resources already, and I understand the Willunga Council this morning was meeting with the possibility of getting a report from the Department of Mines and Energy.
Members of the Conservation Council are horrified that something so valuable to South Australia was not properly protected, and they're demanding the government place a heritage order on whatever's left of the 1 kilometre structure of ancient caverns and chambers. Ironically, it was workers at the mine who first discovered the unique network of delicate crystal formations 2 years ago. Explorers were briefly given access and understood Southern Quarries would mine in a different area if the location of the cave was kept a secret. But last Thursday, in what workers claim was an unscheduled and larger than normal blast, the main cavern was blown apart. Margaret Parker, National 9 News.
But first, a spectacular limestone cave, which could have been a major tourist attraction on Adelaide's south coast, has been blown up by a quarry company to make road gravel. Attempts are underway to stop the quarrying until experts can check what's left of the cave, but they fear it could be too late to save it for science and tourism.
Sellicks Hill, where the Mount Lofty Ranges meet the sea, is the site of a major gravel quarry operated by Southern Quarries. 2 years ago, members of the Cave Exploration Group discovered a huge limestone cave about 1 kilometre long under the quarry floor. Cathedral-like chambers similar to the best formations found in the southeast of the state, and much older, possibly with fossils dating back 1 million or more years. After an initial survey, the cave explorers and quarry management decided to keep the cave a secret until its future could be decided. The bargain was broken last Thursday when the company blew it up.
They put a large amount of explosive on the surface and they blew the top in, and they then filled it up with many thousands of tonnes of rock.
Gartrell says the quarry had a life of 200 years without disturbing the cave. He believes quarrying operations could have continued alongside what would have become a major tourist attraction for Fleurieu Peninsula.
What are we trying to become here? Is it going to be the gravel capital of Australia? I'm terribly surprised and hurt by this. We've done our best for this cave. It would have been a massive tourist attraction for South Australia, for the Fleurieu Peninsula, and I'm terribly sorry with the way it's going, but I don't think it's all lost yet.
Chris Warren, 7 Nightly News.
A row has broken out over the destruction of a limestone cave at Sellicks Hill, south of Adelaide. A local expert is outraged that the cave has been destroyed and wants all quarrying in the area to stop while a full inquiry is carried out.
This 60 by 30 metre chamber was discovered in the middle of a limestone and dolomite quarry at Sellicks Hill 2 years ago. However, details of its existence have been a closely guarded secret until now. Cave expert Dr. Grant Gartrell was called in to investigate and had managed to survey a 1 kilometre passage and photograph the cavern. He says it was in pristine condition and believes it was one of a series of much larger chambers of the same significance as parts of the famous Jenolan caves in New South Wales, which contain many large formations. But last Thursday, the cave was blown up.
We haven't had the opportunity with this cave to investigate the extensive silt deposits in there, which may hold fossils of immeasurable value as well. From the point of view of science, of the prehistory of this country, it could be absolutely critical.
Dr. Gartrell has now called on the new government to launch an inquiry into the role the Department of Mines and Energy played in the cave's demise, but Southern Quarries has hit back. It says the chamber was just 5 metres from the surface and would have soon collapsed on its own. It claims the cave was too dangerous, and in the long-term interests of the deposits and the safety of employees, the cavity had to be removed. The company didn't want a truck to fall into the hole. Dr. Gartrell doesn't want the quarry to close, but he's called for mining to cease pending an investigation to determine if anything can be salvaged and conserved.
This is 10 Eyewitness News with Nikki Dwyer and Peter Sellen.
Also tonight, the destruction of limestone caves at Sellicks Hill to be investigated.
Premier Brown promises to investigate the destruction of limestone caves at Sellicks Hill.
The Premier, Dean Brown, has promised to investigate the deliberate destruction of limestone caves, which could be up to 50 million years old. The cave system, which was in pristine condition, is on property owned by Southern Quarries at Sellicks Hill.
The cathedral-sized chambers containing stalactites and stalagmites were captured on video by cave explorers prior to the blasting operation. The Sellicks Hill cave system is said to be at least equivalent to the Jenolan caves in the southeast of the state. The destruction of at least part of the network has shocked and angered conservationists. It's occurred in Premier Brown's own electorate.
We've asked for a report through the Department of Environment and Natural Resources already, and I understand the Willunga Council this morning was meeting with the possibility of getting a report from the Department of Mines and Energy.
According to the cave explorers, the blasting occurred after 6 months of negotiation with Southern Quarries. It's alleged that an inspector from the Department of Mines and Energy was present at the time of the implosion.
If there has been some sort of collusion between Mines Department officials and the quarry management, then I want that sorted out. If there's been some sort of total disregard for conservation values, I want that to be prevented from happening again.
The explorers say the caves had a huge potential as an eco-tourism development and would have been worth millions to the state. Only last week, Mr Brown was talking of the huge tourism potential of the Fleurieu Peninsula.
That's the closest of tourist cave to a capital city in Australia. It's on the doorstep of the Fleurieu Peninsula, and it would have been another feather in the cap of the Fleurieu Peninsula.
No one from Southern Quarries would be interviewed today, but a media statement claims it was done in accordance with Department of Mines and Energy directions. Rick Teague, 10 News.
Moves are underway to save what's left of a spectacular limestone cave blown up by a Sellicks Hill quarry company. News of the blast has outraged conservation groups. The Environment Department's ordered an inquiry, while the Mines Department has revealed it's not the first cave to be filled in so quarrying can continue.
A million years in the making and destroyed in a single day with a charge of gelignite. Southern Quarries, which filled in the cave, say it was a danger to their dump trucks. According to the Conservation Council, it's a tragic loss because the cave belongs to the people of South Australia.
We now call on the new Liberal government to take immediate action to protect what may be left and make sure that this sort of thing cannot happen again.
Of the Environment Department, Dennis Muttons asked the quarry company to stop all blasting until an inspection of the cave can be carried out with an assessment of its heritage value. A spokesman for the Mines Department says Southern Quarries has been given permission by the department to fill in caves which pose a threat to the health and safety of quarry workers.
The Department of Mines' role in this has been absolutely appalling. They had an inspector on standby watching the blasting last Thursday, so they've colluded in this.
One of the cavers who made the discovery 2 years ago and kept its location a secret until it could be protected is still hopeful some of the best formations can be saved.
Major damage has already been done. It's amazing what that cave has withstood to date. It may even be able to survive this.
Chris Warren, 7 Nightly News.
Okay, thanks guys. Action.
Right of the line. This is a small one.
Oh, yeah. There we go. Bit beautiful formations here.
through.
The stomach buster.
Yeah, stomach buster, the grunt. Okay. At 9 hours, I think. I seem to remember. Hey?
It's okay.
I'll just go around to here. This is the beginning of the night.
And it keeps going.
Stuff up for in here if you got them.
Yeah, no problem.
The other two won't be through for a while, so I'll go down and then I'll come back.
Oh, look at them now.
Yeah, it's magic, isn't it?
A giant column type. Little windstone pool over there. That's it. From there will do. I'll just and over to the left a bit. That's great. On your right, behind you. The big tilted slab, that's it. A20.
On his first busy day as Premier, Dean Brown has called for an immediate report into the destruction of a rare limestone cave at Sellicks Hill. It's been claimed the cave could have been a major tourist attraction if it hadn't been destroyed during mining.
Southern Quarries has defended last week's blasting of the cave at Sellicks Hill. Company manager Ron Delaney claims the decision was made on the grounds of safety. He says the main cavern was in the direct path of where they're about to mine, and the safety of workers could no longer be guaranteed. But members of the South Australian Cave Exploration Group are outraged by the destruction and have called on the government to act immediately. Shortly after being sworn in this afternoon, Premier Dean Brown called for the appropriate departments to come up with some answers.
We've asked for a report through the Department of Environment and Natural Resources already, and I understand the Willunga Council this morning was meeting with the possibility of getting a report from the Department of Mines and Energy.
Members of the Conservation Council are horrified that something so valuable to South Australia was not properly protected, and they're demanding the government place a heritage order on whatever's left of the 1 kilometre structure of ancient caverns and chambers. Ironically, it was workers at the mine who first discovered the unique network of delicate crystal formations 2 years ago. Explorers were briefly given access and understood Southern Quarries would mine in a different area if the location of the cave was kept a secret. But last Thursday, in what workers claim was an unscheduled and larger-than-normal blast, the main cavern was blown apart. Margaret Parker, National 9 News.
A quarry company talked environmentalists into keeping quiet about a spectacular limestone cave. Then they blew it up anyway.
Well, I was absolutely astounded. Moral, it's criminal. Moral, it's a crime against humanity.
Those stories, more to come in Real Life with Naomi Robson.
Good evening and welcome to Real Life. After the break, caves or gravel? A quarry company settles an environmental argument with dynamite. To people who like crawling around dark spaces, it was the find of the century. A previously undiscovered network of spectacular limestone caves near Adelaide. The problem was the caves were on the site of a limestone quarry and there were jobs and profits at stake. A secret agreement was reached to preserve the site, but the greenies were double-crossed and the caves reduced to gravel. age-old battle. This versus this. But in this environmental row, the Greenies have been double-crossed in their bid to save these prehistoric caves.
Moral, it's criminal. Moral, it's a crime against humanity. Here we've got people just taking the law into their own hands, a moral law, and saying that everybody else can go to hell, that gravel's more important.
When Southern Quarries just outside of Adelaide first discovered these caves in their Sellicks Hills site, cave experts like Grant Gatrell were thrilled. An underground network potentially rivaling the best the country has to offer. These amateur pictures show a rare glimpse of what they found.
There's quite large beds of silt in this particular cave. We have not yet had the opportunity to investigate that silt and see whether it's got bones of significance in it at all. If we do find bones in it, if we have the opportunity, then they could be as much as 50 million years old.
To avoid the violent environmental battles of the 80s, Southern Quarries and the Mines Department sat down with the Greenies to work on an agreement which would preserve both the caves and the jobs at the quarry. The cavers agreed to keep quiet about the find until plans were finalised.
They were concerned that we were going to end up in a confrontational position where they were going to be trampled underfoot by people wanting to visit it while they were quarrying, and that up to 30 of the workers on the site would then lose their livelihoods.
But while the cavers were trying to do the right thing, they hadn't counted on the company and the Mines Department reneging on the deal. Directly beneath me is the site of the controversial cave. Conservationists believed it was potentially rich in prehistoric or Aboriginal remains. The only problem is no one ever got to find out, because last Thursday the cave was imploded, filled with rock, and is now gone forever.
And what have they done? They've turned around and they've got their damn explosives out and they've blown the bloody thing up. And I'm really mad. When I first heard about this, by gee, I was just numb. I didn't know what my feelings were, and now my feelings are starting to come through and I'm getting angry.
Caver Mac McDonald.
Well, I was absolutely astounded. We had for 2 years been trying to preserve the cave, and we believed we had agreements with the quarry people and with people from the Mines Department to hold that cave in reserve for values for people later on, as tourism or whatever it was going to be used for. So to destroy it without at least assessing it really was absolute vandalism.
These caves at Narracourt welcome 50,000 tourists a year. With World Heritage listing only months away, its value as a money spinner is considerable, and as an historic and scientific find, invaluable.
The material here has been dated but somewhere between 18,000 years and 180,000 years old.
Cavers believe the Sellicks Hill caves to be even older and even more significant in terms of tourism potential and archaeological worth.
We've got a cave that instead of being 20 million year old rock is 500 million year old rock. We've got silt that instead of being perhaps a couple of 100,000 years old is probably 5 million years old, maybe 50 million years old. We have not had time yet to look at the bones that are in that silt, but by gee, we ought to have the opportunity to do that. Who are these people down there to tell us that their damn gravel's more important than our cave? I mean, for God's sake.
Neither the Mines Department nor the company's director would talk to us. They argue the caves are not unique and pose a safety hazard to the men at the quarry. Don Henley is the site manager. How will you explain it to your grandchildren perhaps one day if we found that there was, in fact, hugely important, hugely valuable caves underneath?
Do you think that will happen?
I don't know, but it's certainly possible.
I don't think that will happen.
Grant and Mac believe there are more caves beneath the quarry site. They're now fighting to save them before they suffer the same fate as their first discovery.
If we lose this cave, we might as well give up and vacate the planet, quite frankly.
Edwina Gatenby reporting from South Australia.
Overindulging. And the natural wonder under threat on Adelaide's doorstep. There is still time to save this enchanted limestone grotto. Join us at 5 o'clock.
This is the 10 Eyewitness News with Peter Sellen and Marina Emsley.
With the loss of the Grand Prix, Adelaide needs to make the most of its other tourist draw cards. But an underground wonderland to rival Narracourt, discovered on Adelaide's doorstep, has been deliberately damaged, and scientists are demanding an inquiry.
The battle between conservation and development has a shifting focus. Since the 80s, conservationists have fought to save the Franklin River and the Daintree rainforest, prevent wilderness from being turned to wood chips, and oppose those who want to replace the city's old buildings with modern ones. But in the 90s, conservationists and farmers joined forces for the decade of land care, working together to restore degraded soils and vegetation.
And the focus of tourism is changing too, as eco-tourists turn away from managed holidays and developed resorts in favour of more personal experiences in wilderness areas.
Ecotourism has now turned both the Franklin River and the Daintree rainforest into major tourist attractions interstate, and ecotourism is proving popular in South Australia too, where visitors look for natural attractions like the Flinders Ranges, Kangaroo Island and the Narracourt Caves. Narracourt's fossil caves were proposed for World Heritage listing earlier this year. They draw 50,000 visitors each year and would draw many more were they closer to Adelaide. The Genoan Caves, 120 kilometres from Sydney, attract 250,000 people each year. To have such a prize on Adelaide's doorstep could be a real tourist asset, and yet a comparable cave system at Sellicks Hill, only 50 kilometres from Adelaide, was kept a close secret following its discovery 2 years ago, until early this month its roof was blown in with explosives. Grant Gartrell led the expedition that discovered the Victoria Cave at Narracourt. He's one of the few to have seen the inside of the Sellicks Hill Cave. In 1991, he began to film and map it.
Probably 5% of the cave's gone, Rob, through the implosion of the roof of a high chamber and the fact that the chamber's now filled with rock, but 95% of the cave remains. 95% of the known cave. There are also 8 question marks in red shown on this map, which indicate areas we haven't even had the chance to have a look at yet. There may be an expectation that there's cave beyond the map, which is like what we've seen already. Now, as to what we have seen already, it's beautiful. There's lovely formation through quite spacious tunnels and formation of the sort that we just don't see in South Australia in any other cave that we know. In fact, the tall draperies, 10-foot, 15-foot long draped shawls. There are beautiful things like the plum pudding. There are also exquisite aragonite flowers, absolutely beautiful formation, and we don't know of anything to match those anywhere else in Australia.
Caves are highly prized by scientists too, as they act as natural traps. Rod Wells discovered the fossil deposits within the Victoria Cave, including the only complete skeletons of some of Australia's early mammals.
In the southeast of this state, those limestone caves have preserved the remains of animals that lived during the last ice age, whereas some of these more ancient limestones, like the ones to the south of Adelaide, have the potential to preserve the remains of animals that lived tens, hundreds of millions of years ago. And it's really a tragedy that scientists haven't been able to get in there to explore it before it was all dynamited.
We must have an independent investigation. We need people who are well qualified in the values of caves to be able to have access to the cave once again to represent the interests of the people of South Australia.
Rob Morrison for 10 News.
After the break, we'll review
the escape of fiery death.
South Australians launch a bitter attack on Victorian beer.
And the Sellicks Caves calls for independent advice from interstate.
Good evening. There'll be a roundtable conference next week to look at what happens to the Sellicks Hill Cave now that it's been partially destroyed by quarry blasting. Environment Minister David Watten's taking advice from local mining geologist Professor David Stapleton, but the cave's supporters want experts from interstate.
It's 3 weeks since 7 Nightly News showed pictures of this spectacular limestone cave under the floor of a gravel quarry at Sellicks Hill. The Mines and Energy Department supports the decision by Southern Quarries to blast the cave, but caving experts and the Willunga Council have been pressuring the Brown government for an independent assessment of whether the cave can be saved.
My responsibility is to ensure that if there are other caves, or if indeed there is still a significant part of the cave that has been blasted left that should be preserved, how best we can do that.
7 News understands mining geologist Professor David Stapleton has been asked to give expert advice, but we're told Professor Stapleton has worked as a consultant to Southern Quarries.
While we have every confidence in his ability to carry out his own work, he's not the proper person to provide an independent assessment.
Although blasting's been suspended for a month, Minister Watten believes it's too late to save what's left.
I understand, regrettably, that that the majority of that cave has been destroyed. We're still confident that perhaps 90% of the cave is structurally sound, and that we should certainly be able to go in and investigate that.
Chris Warren, 7 Nightly News.
Quarry stopped blasting work at the site after complaints from amateur explorers. The Cave Exploration Group argued the site was extensive and of major significance. The government agreed to investigate and called in the experts to help. They're expected to deliver their findings to the government in a fortnight.
The fate of a partially destroyed limestone cave at Sellicks Hill is in the balance tonight. Mining and cave experts have been meeting all day to try to decide its future. The cave was blown up by Southern Quarries last December, causing an uproar among conservation groups and creating a political minefield.
A battalion of experts arrived at Southern Quarries early this morning. For many, it was their first chance to inspect the limestone cave under the floor of the gravel quarry. In December, 7 News revealed that Southern Quarries had blasted a section of the kilometre-long cave, allegedly breaking a long-standing deal with cave explorers to leave the million-year-old find alone until its fate had been decided. The Department of Mines and the Environment Department ordered an inquiry, and today 2 independent experts from Victoria inspected the site and spent the day talking with all factions in a meeting chaired by Environment Department Chief Dennis Martin.
No one involved in this meeting was willing to talk to 7 News today, saying negotiations are still at the delicate stage. But it is understood that a preliminary report on the fate of the cave will be out later tomorrow.
That'll show if the experts think the Sellicks cave should be preserved for its heritage and tourism value, or if Southern Quarries can go ahead and gelignite what remains. Susan Harrington, 7 Nightly News.
A bomb victim, Detective Sergeant Jeff Bowen.
And the state government refuses to stop further destruction of the Sellicks Hill caves.
Perth.
The controversial Sellicks Hill caves now face total destruction. The state government has announced it won't shut down quarrying operations. To do so would have cost taxpayers as much as $40 million in compensation.
The state government has been considering the future of the Sellicks Hill cave system for almost 3 months. The Cave Exploration Group, which took this video of the underground system, has been fighting Southern Quarries to stop blasting in the area. But Environment Minister David Watton announced this afternoon that the government wouldn't intervene to stop the quarry, which has a life of another 30 years. He says the government had considered 2 independent reports and it wasn't convinced the caves were exceptional.
The fact is that if the cave had been saved, it would have cost taxpayers millions of dollars worth of compensation, and it would have meant that tourists would not have been able to enter those caves for some 30 years.
Mr Watton says he's annoyed the standoff between the cavers and miners had developed and is determined it won't happen again.
I would also like to invite the cavers to be able to go out and to be able to inform the government where there are other caves, particularly in the Fleurieu Peninsula.
He says consideration can then be given to evaluating and preserving such cave sites. The Cave Exploration Group says it's disappointed and very surprised at the Sellicks Hill decision. It describes the move as placing gravel ahead of tourist and heritage values. Neil Cross, 10 News.
More mortars were fired in the second attack in 36 hours. We'll have full details at 6.
Also tonight, the battle to save the magnificent underground spectacle at the Sellicks Cave has been lost.
From Perth, we'll have the funeral.
Tonight, the Sellicks Hill Cave will be destroyed. The government says the quarry is more important.
Tight security as Prince Edward arriving too much money.
But first, disappointment tonight for supporters of the Sellicks Hill Caves. The Brown government's decided it would cost too much to save the caves from quarrying, so mining will be allowed to continue.
This video will soon be all that remains of the Sellicks Hill Caves. Today's decision by the Brown government allows the quarry operator, Southern Quarries, to blow up these caverns so the miners can safely run their dump trucks on the surface. According to the government, 2 independent experts have evaluated the caves from the video, and while acknowledging they contain some impressive features, they're not regarded as being exceptional.
If the cave had been saved, it would have cost taxpayers millions of dollars worth of compensation,
and it would have meant that tourists would not have been able to enter those caves for some 30 years.
Watton claims Southern Quarries could demand up to $40 million compensation if the quarry was closed immediately, and between $8 and $14 million if the mining activity was shifted away from the cave site.
The cave is being lost. I'm very scared others, if they exist, and they're very rare indeed, will be lost also.
Attempts are underway to have the caves put on the state's heritage register, and cavers want Minister Watton to freeze all quarrying activity until the application is considered. Chris Warren, 790 News.
Updating the day's top stories now, and it now came an embarrassing development today for the state government with news that the controversial Sellicks Hill caves could be preserved after all. The State Heritage Authority has placed the caves on a provisional heritage list to allow a full assessment of their merit.
Since these caves became the centre of controversy late last year, no one has been inside them. A blast by Southern Quarries sealed off the entrances, so assessments about whether quarrying should be permanently stopped have been made from the outside. Last week, Environment Minister David Watton declared the caves were not worth saving, given the millions of dollars that would need to be paid to Southern Quarries in compensation. But it seems the minister spoke prematurely. A Heritage Authority hearing this morning gave the caves the protection of a stop order and provisional listing under the Heritage Act.
The stop order gives us a breathing space. It gives us time to have a proper look at the cave. There is no need for indecent haste in destroying this cave.
The matter now goes to the Environment Court, but conservationists are confident that blasting will be banned near the caves for some months, so that experts can go inside to judge their heritage value. The Labor opposition supports the stop order, but the Environment Minister was unavailable for comment. Chris Kenny, 10 News.
Local cave enthusiasts and environmentalists are celebrating a temporary victory over the state government. The State Heritage Authority has placed a stop order on mining at the Sellicks Hill Quarry, while the heritage value of a limestone cave there is independently assessed.
Controversy over the cave flared late last year when Southern Quarries blasted a main cavern in the 1 kilometre of rare limestone. The Conservation Council and caving groups called on the new Liberal government to place a heritage order on what was left. But last Friday, the government decided quarrying could continue. Its decision was based on an inquiry that said taxpayers would have to fork out $40 million in compensation if mining stopped. But cave enthusiasts say the Sellicks cave can be preserved without a halt to quarrying.
We've had a little bit of trouble up until now getting our message about the heritage values through, and we feel at least we have a breathing space at the moment to promote that better.
The stop order by the Independent State Heritage Authority means the cave has been provisionally listed under the Heritage Act. Its value will be thoroughly assessed over the next few months.
But first, renewed hope tonight that the Sellicks Hill Quarry cave may be saved from destruction. A heritage stop order has been placed on the site less than a week after the state government ruled the cave was of no special significance and should be blown to smithereens.
This is the evidence the government used to make last Friday's decision. After viewing this video, independent consultants told the government there was nothing outstanding about the formations inside the cave and ruled Southern Quarries should be allowed to blast it so their dump trucks could safely run over its surface. Now the State Heritage Authority has placed a stop order on the site based on newly released evidence.
There's every likelihood that at least 70% of the cave remains and may still be in pristine condition, and that a proper assessment should be carried out.
Effective immediately, the order prevents the quarry company from blasting within a 30-metre radius of the cave. Supporters now want to be allowed back inside to try to assess the damage.
There is no need for indecent haste in destroying this cave. In fact, the main thing that the government announced last week, if you read the statement carefully, is that there is a 30-year life to the quarry without destroying the cave.
The decision reopens an old wound for the government. Environment Minister David Watton believes if Southern Quarries has to move its operations away from the cave site, it could sue for up to $14 million in compensation. Philip Martin, 7 Nightly News.
A reprieve of sorts today for the Sellicks Hill Quarry Cave. The State Heritage Authority has successfully placed a stop order preventing further quarrying around the cave.
The new move has effectively stopped Southern Quarries working within 30 metres of the cave at Sellicks Hill for 4 days. The full extent of the cave system isn't known, but the main passage is longer than Rundle Mall, and the main chamber has a ceiling up to 18 metres high. The cave complex was originally discovered in 1991 and remained intact until part was blown up by the mining company in December last year. At the time, the company said the chamber was so close to the surface, a potential collapse posed a major risk to site workers. Last week, the state government decided it would not stop work at the quarry because it would have to pay the company compensation. An independent review has since found the cave is the largest and most significant in the region, is of scientific interest and has good potential as a show cave. Today, Grant Gartrell, who helped discover the cave, said the review had vindicated his call for its proper assessment.
The stop order gives us a breathing space. It gives us time to have a proper look at the cave. There is no need for indecent haste in destroying this cave.
A spokesman for Southern Quarries says the company was surprised by the order, as it expected the government to stand by its decision to allow quarrying to continue. Environment Minister David Watton will meet with the State Heritage Authority tomorrow before deciding whether to overturn the order.
Let's take up a challenge on arthritis.
Good evening, but first, quarrying operations can resume at the controversial Sellicks Hill caves. The government has wasted no time in overturning a state heritage protection order on the caves. Environment Minister David Watton says the calls of protest came too late.
The State Heritage Authority yesterday stepped in to save the Sellicks Hill cave site, which is threatened by quarrying. It placed a provisional order stopping any activity which could damage the caves further. But today, Environment Minister David Watton exercised his right of veto. He revoked the order, saying permanent heritage listing could cost the state government up to $40 million in compensation.
We cannot have a situation where government is being told what to do by an independent authority.
Mr Watton says his decision was based on a video of the caves and 2 independent reports. He maintains his department was not informed of the cave site before damage occurred a couple of months ago, despite cavers having notified the Department of Mines and Energy.
I'm in the process of drawing up a code of practice to ensure that this will not happen again, and there will be total consultation between the Department of Environment and Natural Resources and the Department of Mines and Energy.
I'm obviously quite distressed by this. I'm thinking of the future generations. How can it be? Who is the public? Are we talking about Southern Quarry's interest? Are we talking about the Minister's interest? Are we talking about the public's interest? Are we talking about this generation, the next generation, or generations hundreds of years to come?
The Cavers Association is seeking legal advice and still holds hope the caves can be saved. Kelly Sloan, 10 News.
The Sellicks Hill Quarry Cave now seems doomed to be blasted. That's the outcome of a government decision to overturn a heritage order preventing mining of the cave, but supporters say the government is covering up the truth.
Yesterday there was renewed hope for the Sellicks Hill Cave with the granting of a provisional heritage listing. Today its fate was sealed. After meeting with the State Heritage Authority, the Environment Minister overturned the order and proceeded to lay the blame squarely with those who discovered the cave.
The cavers knew about these caves for some 2.5 years. They've used it as their private playground. They made no attempt to approach my department. They made no attempt to have these caves placed on the heritage list.
All along, the government has insisted its decision was based on 2 independent reports which found there was nothing of outstanding value inside the cave. The Democrats, however, say the government is ignoring the real findings of the reports, which refer to the significance of the cave formations and its potential as a major tourist attraction.
One has to question the government that sets up an independent inquiry, gets recommendations and then chooses to ignore them. Quite clearly the report didn't suit their ends.
The reports, which were based on this videotape, also recommend the need for a physical examination of the site. Cave supporters say it's a move the government will never agree to.
They're scared of what we might find down there, that they are so concerned with the economics that they don't want us to show that the heritage value of the cave is, as we've been suggesting all along.
Philip Martin, 7 Nightly News.
Good evening. The state government has taken a tough line over the heritage ban on a cave at Sellicks Hill. Environment Minister David Watton has overturned an order banning mining. He says the caves are not worth saving and the government won't be told what to do.
Yesterday, the Independent Heritage Authority slapped a stop order on mining around the Sellicks caves, demanding further consideration of their importance. The caves came to prominence late last year after Southern Quarries blasted a main cavern. The government commissioned 2 independent reports. Both endorsed a moratorium on mining while the area was thoroughly assessed. Despite this, Environment Minister David Watton said the government wouldn't interfere with the mining and risk a multi-million-dollar compensation bill. Today he was standing by that decision.
We cannot have a situation where government is being told what to do by an independent authority, particularly when there has been plenty of opportunity for them to take action previously.
Using his right of veto over the Heritage Authority, Mr Watton says environmental, tourism and economic considerations also had to be taken into account.
Those caves are not significant enough to be retained.
Caving groups disagree and say they'll now seek legal advice.
Newsbreak, brought to you by National Mutual.
Hello again, police. And in other news today, the state government is taking a tough line in the Sellicks Hill Caves row. It's overturned a ban on mining there, saying the caves aren't worth saving and it won't be pushed around by an independent heritage group.
Fresh moves tonight to prevent further demolition of the Sellicks Hill Caves. The Supreme Court has granted an injunction stopping work at the site. The action has been taken against Environment Minister David Watton and Southern Quarries.
The temporary injunction puts the controversial caves back on the State Heritage Authority's listing. It was the Environment Minister David Watton who revoked the original order, saying it would cost the state up to $40 million to compensate the operators, Southern Quarries. Environmentalists were outraged late last year when it was revealed that the company had deliberately destroyed a section of the cave network, claiming it posed a danger to workers. In court today, the cavers argued that Minister Watton breached the law by not allowing the Heritage Authority listing to continue. It would ask the court to find the minister was bound to allow the Heritage Authority to assess the cave and was also bound to consider the authority's advice. It claimed the minister had acted on prejudicial and incorrect information. The cavers said the government had overridden its own independent assessment of the caves and was prepared to allow exquisite mineral formations to be turned into road-based gravel. Further argument on the injunction is expected in court next week. Rick Teague, 10 News.
The Sellicks Hill Caves are back on the State Heritage List. A Supreme Court injunction was granted today protecting the underground caverns from quarrying. This follows legal action initiated last week by cavers, challenging the minister's authority to remove the caves from the Heritage List. The case is expected to be heard in a month. Although quarrying can still continue without disturbing the protected areas, Southern Quarries has indicated it will claim damages for any permanent disruptions.
Good evening. Coming up in the news, the battle over Sellicks Hill Cave shifts to the Supreme Court. The federal government waters down its unfair dismissal laws.
Jane Doyle and Graham Gooding. 7 Nightly News.
Meanwhile, in another court, caving groups which fought and lost a battle to preserve the Sellicks Hill Caves earlier this year have begun further legal action against Environment Minister David Watton. Justice Derek Bolland's been told that Minister Watton breached the rules of procedural fairness in not giving the caving groups the chance to promote the economic and tourism benefits of the caves before he gave the order to destroy them. Graham Hunter, 7 Nightly News.
The battle over the limestone caves at Sellicks Hill has shifted to the South Australian Supreme Court. The Australian Speleological Federation wants Environment Minister David Watton's decision, taking the cave site off the state's heritage list, to be declared invalid.
South Australian speleologists have been fighting to preserve the caves, which are threatened by quarrying operations at Sellicks Hill, south of Adelaide. Earlier this year, the South Australian Speleological Council managed to convince the State Heritage Authority to put the caves on an interim protection list, while more information about the site was gathered. However, in March, the Environment Minister David Watton removed the caves from the list and revoked a Heritage Authority stop order preventing further quarrying. Today in the Supreme Court, Brian Hayes QC for the speleologists argued that Mr Watton's decision was invalid. He said the cavers were given a chance to comment only on the heritage and tourism potential of the caves, but not on other important issues such as the economics of the quarry and compensation should quarrying be restricted. He told the court the minister believed the compensation bill could be as high as $40 million. The court heard Mr Watton had previously indicated compensation was not an issue. His decision had been based on the insignificant heritage value of the caves. Justice Bollen is being asked to test the validity of the minister's decision, not overturn the decision itself. The case is expected to be decided this week.
Back home, and the fate of the controversial Sellicks Hill cave is back on the political agenda. The cave was blown up in a quarry in 1993. Now a parliamentary committee has visited the site to look at why it happened and how future discoveries can be saved.
The All-Party Environment, Resources and Development Committee has been asked by Parliament to investigate the attempted implosion of the cave by Southern Quarries 2 years after its discovery in 1991. Initial exploration by cavers through a small entrance revealed a series of larger, well-decorated chambers, sparking calls to include the cave on the State Heritage List. However, the quarry, citing the safety of its workers, destroyed much, if not all of the cave in order to continue quarrying. The committee's terms of reference include the role of the quarry and the Department of Mines and Energy.
The broad references that were set down give us a reasonable parameter to look at all the aspects that are concerned with either protecting or considering that legislation may be required to protect such a situation should it occur again.
Despite the passage of time, the controversy is far from over. And after today's visit, the Parliamentary Committee will hear evidence from the Department of Mines and Energy, as well as caving organisations. The committee's final report is expected within 2 months. David Kellett, National 9 News.
To rival the best caves in the southeast. In December 1993, Southern Quarries imploded the entrance of the cave, effectively sealing it off to cavers and anyone who might want to develop it for tourism. Today, State Parliament's Environment, Resources and Development Committee was given a guided tour of the quarry, but no information about the condition of the cave.
No one is really aware of what is left of the cave. The cave area is closed. There was an implosion, as you know, which closed the entrance.
Issues to be looked at by the committee include the role of Southern Quarries and government departments, whether anyone's entitled to compensation, and if there's a need for protective legislation. The committee will start taking evidence from interested groups, including caving experts and the Department of Mines and Energy, and a report will be made to State Parliament within the next 2 months. Chris Warren, 7 Nightly News.
Mining operations at Southern Quarries. The quarry owners asked cavers to explore it. They found that it led to a series of large, well-decorated chambers. The cave system included a section which housed 1 kilometre of stalagmites, crystal formations and rare arachnite flowers. Southern Quarries blasted the caves in December 1993. The company claimed it acted out of concern for the safety of its workers.
No one is really aware of what is left of the cave. The cave area is closed. The quarrying has continued on either side and around the area of the cave.
Today, Parliament's Environment, Resources and Development Committee started investigating the issue.
To look at all the aspects that are concerned with either protecting or considering that legislation may be required to protect such a situation should it occur again.
The committee is also expected to investigate whether what's left of the site should be protected, and compensation issues will be considered. The Liberal, Labor and Democrat MPs toured the quarry site today, although with the cave entrance sealed, they were unable to venture underground.
Over the next few weeks, the committee will take evidence from quarry management, the Mines and Energy Department and cavers. It hopes to deliver its findings to Parliament by July. Mark Smith, 10 News.
An inquiry is underway into the partial destruction of a spectacular underground cave at Sellicks Hill, south of Adelaide. The inquiry by a parliamentary committee will decide whether more should have been done to save the cave, which many say had enormous tourism potential.
The attempted destruction of Sellicks Hill Cave in December 1993 outraged cave experts. They said the area was a significant geological site which had huge potential as a tourism drawcard. The Environment, Resources and Development Committee is looking into the assault on the limestone cave by its owners, Southern Quarries. One of the questions to be answered, what's left of the cave?
That's something we still don't know. and that we hope to be able to discover to a better degree when we have our witnesses in to give us evidence. At this stage we're told that no one is really aware of what is left of the cave.
The cave was discovered in 1991 during mining operations by Southern Quarries. The company asked cavers to explore the site, which revealed a series of large ancient chambers decorated with stalagmites and crystal formations. But the exploration was cut short by Southern Quarries, which then imploded the cave, saying it was a danger to workers because it would soon collapse. In March last year, the State Heritage Authority placed a 4-day ban on quarrying at the site, an order which was then overturned by Environment Minister David Watton. Witnesses at the inquiry will include officials from the Mines and Energy Department, Southern Quarries executives and cave organisations. The committee will begin hearing evidence next week.